Second down and 2, Green Bay from their own 38.
Biggest moment of this game, for sure. Just a bad play by Jordan Love. And one of the best safeties in the league capitalizes, as he always does. Huge. The Lions are riding their clean and efficient brand of football into Houston, where they look to continue a 6-game winning streak in a Week 10 battle of division leaders. Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Johnny Gaz. Thank you for returning for another video. Detroit is going to take its high-powered offense on the road again, out to Houston to face the Texans on Sunday Night Football. This will be November 10th, 8:20 p.m. kickoff. Let's go through my full game preview. We'll start with the headlines and storylines from this week. I'll talk about the key matchups and the X factors for this game, and I'll tell you what the ultimate difference will be. At the end, I'll give you my final score and prediction, so stick around. Let's go. Before we get into Lions and Texans, make sure to hit that like button. It's the best free way to help out the channel. I'd also love it if you consider subscribing. We're closing in on 2,200 thanks to you guys. And if you hit the notify bell, you won't miss any future videos. There is a membership option available. I do live game-by-play reactions, all my tier list, a ton of other fun stuff, but there's always free content here for you all the time. Make sure to comment down below on this Week 10 matchup. Who do you have, Detroit or Houston? One of the best offensives in the NFL versus one of the better defenses in all of the NFL. Hit me up in those comments down below. Let's get into Week 10. Let's kick this off with our headlines leading up to this Week 10 Sunday Night Football matchup. Let's start with the Lions. Biggest news is the trade for Zadarius Smith, the edge rusher from Cleveland. The Lions were able to make the move for a pass rusher to help bolster their defensive line. Ever since the unfortunate injury to Aiden Hutchinson, the pass rush rate, sack rate has really fallen off for the Lions. Although the defense has held up well, they really were looking to bolster the defensive line and have done so with this acquisition of Zadarius Smith. The Lions give up a 2025 fifth round and a 2026 sixth round pick, but really now have bolstered their defensive line in an effort to make a run at the Super Bowl. Wide receiver Jameson Williams will also be returning to the roster this week after his 2-game performance-enhancing substance suspension from the NFL. He is also currently under additional investigation for a concealed weapons issue he had in an incident that occurred in early October. However, the Lions have put full faith behind Jameson Williams. He has stayed with the organization through his suspension and is ready to get back on the field. He should play a huge role in this matchup against the Texans. Brian Branch, the Lions safety, came out and spoke this week after his Week 9 ejection against the Packers. He was flagged for unnecessary roughness, and the New York office eventually called down and did have him ejected from the game for that hit against the Packers wide receiver early in the second quarter. Brian Branch does acknowledge the flag as being correct. He does and is aware that he may have been able to pull up and handle that differently. There was not malicious intent, and he is truly sorry for his actions after that penalty, as he was caught flipping the bird to Green Bay Packers fans after he was ejected from the game. Josh Pascal, the defensive end, is also returning to the Lions this week. He was out the previous 2 weeks due to an illness. We've now come to find out it was surgery to remove a non-cancerous mass in his shoulder. He does have a cancer history and is checked up often, and certainly needed to recover from the surgery before coming back to action. Again, will be another player to bolster the Lions' defensive line. The Lions also placed 3 players from injured reserve into the injury evaluation period, the 21-day window, where they can decide whether or not to activate the players or keep them on season-ending IR. Those players being Broderick Martin, the defensive tackle, the cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, as well as the safety Ife Melifonwu. I will keep you posted on their status as we get into the Sunday night matchup as well as into next week. There was also no practice for the new acquisition, Zadarius Smith, over the last several days, both Wednesday and Thursday. Dan Campbell has come out and said that this is basically allowing him to rest. As he was leaving the Cleveland Browns, he would have entered the bye week. Unfortunately, the Lions already had the early Week 5 bye week, which basically means that Zadarius Smith was working during his vacation. So the Lions in turn gave him a few days off. We will see if that affects his status for the game on Sunday. I believe he will play in a very limited fashion, but again, I will keep you posted as we get closer to this matchup. A few other injury notes for the Lions. Linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez also did not practice Wednesday and Thursday this week due to his ankle injury. Another linebacker, Jalen Reeves-Maven, suffered a neck injury against the Packers. He did not practice as well Wednesday and Thursday. Both of them are considered questionable at this time. Offensive lineman Taylor Decker was limited in practice on Thursday, listed with a new shoulder injury. However, that may be precautionary as it was not listed the previous day. We do expect him to play in this matchup against Houston. Lions come into the Sunday Night Football matchup riding the hottest offense in the NFL. They have 28 total touchdowns to only 24 incompletions on the season. That now combined with a bolstered defensive line, the Lions are looking to round this thing into form and truly make a push for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Now let's switch over to the Texans and let's start with the injuries. We know they've lost Stephon Diggs for the season. Well, now we're monitoring the status of Nico Collins, who has just been huge for them this year. He's missed the past several weeks. Unfortunately, with his hamstring injury, he has been on injured reserve. He has not practiced this week so far, either Wednesday or Thursday. We will continue to monitor his status as we get closer to this Sunday Night Football matchup. Another major injury to monitor here is defensive edge Will Anderson, who left the game last week against the Jets. He did try to return, but was not able to do so after a few plays there. And unfortunately, he does have an ankle injury and did not practice both Wednesday and Thursday this week. He does appear to be doubtful for this Week 10 matchup, which would be a huge loss for the Texans as he leads the team with 7.5 sacks and 11 tackles for loss. A few other injury updates for the Texans. Offensive lineman Kenyon Green suffered the shoulder injury. He has been placed on season-ending injured reserve. The backup to Will Anderson, the edge, Derek Barnett, also didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday this week, so we'll have to see how they adjust on the other side of Danielle Hunter. Defensive lineman Foley Fudakasi did not practice Wednesday due to a groin issue, and running back Damian Pierce also no practice Wednesday due to a groin. Both of those guys are questionable for the matchup against the Lions. Houston will come out in its all red, what they call battle red uniforms for this Sunday Night Football matchup against the Lions. A really cool look, all red top to bottom. I think the helmet is really cool, so definitely be on the lookout for that on Sunday. The Texans enter this Week 10 matchup hoping to recover from a poor performance on Thursday Night Football against the Jets, but they are riding a very solid defense, hoping to hang in there with the Detroit Lions. Now let's get into what I think will be the key matchups in Lions versus Texans. And something's going to have to give here. The Texans come into this matchup 4-0 at home on the season. Lions are 4-0 on the road. Let's start with what I think is the two weakest units on each of these teams. The Lions defensive line versus the Texans offensive line. And we've talked about what the Lions have done to hopefully supplement their defensive line with the addition of Zadarius Smith. Well, we don't know if he's actually going to play in this matchup, and even if he does, my guess is he will be extremely limited in his snap count. So they're really going to have to rely on the guys they have. They also have the returning Josh Pascal, who they really love, to hopefully help them out. The Houston Texans offensive line has given up 31 total sacks this season, and they gave up 8 last week against that Jets defense. So the Lions will have some opportunities to get to C.J. Stroud. On the other end of things, the Texans offensive line have been able to do some good things on the ground in the run game. Joe Mixon really plays a huge part in this Texans offense. The Lions defensive line will have to be better to stop him. They gave up big yardage last week to Josh Jacobs in the elements, and they'll really have to try and contain Joe Mixon. He has 4 games in a row now where he has rushed for over 100 yards. We just hit on what I think is the two weakest groups of these two teams in a key matchup. Well, let's look at what I think are their two biggest strengths on these teams for the second key matchup in this Week 10 Sunday Night Football game. The Lions running game, their offensive line, versus the Texans defensive front. I think that may be the biggest matchup overall in Lions versus Texans. The Texans actually rank second in yards allowed per game at 281.7, and they do a fantastic job at getting to the quarterback, but we know they are going against what is most likely the best offensive line in all of the NFL, not only in pass protection, but specifically in the run game. We mentioned Will Anderson's status, the defensive edge opposite of Danielle Hunter. If he's not able to play in this matchup, it really gives a leg up to the Lions' offensive line, so we'll have to monitor his status. On top of that, the Texans, in their rush defense, they have given up over 35 runs of 10-plus yards or more. That's ranked 28th in all of the NFL. The Lions, on the other hand, present Sonic and Knuckles, the best running back duo in all of the NFL. Last week against Green Bay, both of those guys, they had 28 carries for 138 yards, which was a 4.9-yard average. It's strength against strength, but I think the Lions have the edge here in this key matchup. Now let's hit on some of those X factors or those players that will make the ultimate difference here in Week 10. Let's start with the Lions quarterback, Jared Goff. And I've gone over this over and over again. But right now he leads the league in completion percentage at 74.9%. Why is that significant? Not only is it a great number, but it could ultimately be an NFL record. If he can keep that pace up, he will surpass Drew Brees' record of 74.4% completion percentage for an entire NFL season. Let's take it one step further. Jared Goff, over the last 5 games, 4 of the last 5 games, has a completion percentage at 80% or better. And he has 30 completions in a row without an incompletion to his number 1 target, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff has just about everything at his disposal. A dominant offensive line, perhaps the best running game in all of the NFL, which causes the best play-action game in all of the NFL. Maybe the best offensive coordinator in all of the NFL. So many things that insulate what now could be the best statistical quarterback in all of the NFL. So in turn, Jared Goff is my ultimate X factor for Week 10. On the other side of this coin is no slouch. We have one of the best up-and-coming quarterbacks in all of the NFL, C.J. Stroud. And the Lions have historically not played well against mobile quarterbacks, and C.J. Stroud can definitely make some things happen with his feet. This season, he has a completion percentage of 63.5%. He's thrown for 2,139 yards and has 11 TDs to 4 interceptions. He's also contributed almost 150 rush yards here. He's dangerous, especially outside the pocket. And with the decrease in his offensive line play, I think it's caused the Texans to now use him just a little bit differently. I expect to see him get outside of the pocket early and often in this game and use his legs against this Lions defense. Sticking with the Texans, I think we have to look at Joe Mixon as a potential X factor in this game. They have been able to get some things going in their run game here, especially behind Joe Mixon coming from Cincinnati, now the feature back here in Houston. He currently has 126 rush attempts on the season for 609 yards, a very respectable 4.8 yard average, but he also contributes in their passing game. He has 14 receptions for almost 115 yards and a TD. For the Lions, they bring a two-headed monster to the running back position and have potentially the best running back duo in all of the NFL. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs play off of each other so well, but the X factor that I believe for this game is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. He is on a fantastic pace. He's a touchdown waiting to happen, truly dynamic. How about this for a stat? In 7 straight games now, he's averaged over 5 point yards per carry. That is truly incredible. He is difficult to stop. The Texans will really have to be on their A game to stop this Lions run offense. Now let's look at the defensive side of the football, and an X factor for the Houston Texans could be Danielle Hunter. We know that we have injury status with Will Anderson on the other side, and that will affect what happens with Danielle Hunter, but he is a fantastic player coming from Minnesota. The Lions have dealt with him a lot, and they know what he can bring to the table. He currently leads the NFL in overall pressures at 57. And for the Lions, you have to look at what may potentially happen with the addition of Zadarius Smith. You have Josh Pascal coming back, starting to add and increase their pieces on the defensive line. Well, I think that makes the other pieces better by association. So be on the lookout for Alim McNeill, who has really been their interior rush presence all season long, especially since Hutch has left. He has 3 sacks on the year. He has 22 pressures, which is 4th for all defensive linemen in the NFL. He is really a force, so be on the lookout for Alim McNeill in this Week 10 matchup. The difference in this game between the Detroit Lions and Houston Texans, Sunday Night Football Week 10, will be the Lions' red zone efficiency versus the Texans' red zone inefficiency. The Texans' opponent's red zone TD percentage here in 2024 is a staggering 69.57%, almost 70%. That ranks 30th in the NFL. And for all the slack that the Detroit Lions defense takes, the defensive line takes in general, on the opposite end, the Detroit's opponent's red zone TD percentage is only 43.48%. That's fourth in the NFL. Let's flip it the other way. The Lions' offensive red zone TD percentage in the last 3 games is 80%. 80% of the time they get in the red zone, they are scoring a touchdown. On the other side, Houston, their red zone TD percentage is only in the last 3 at 35.71%. To me, that is the ultimate difference. If both these defenses are bend, don't break, well, they're going to have to really show what they're made of in the red zone. In my opinion, the Lions' offense and defense in the red zone has been much more efficient compared to the Texans' offense and defense efficiencies in that same red zone. To me, this makes the ultimate difference, and I think the Lions are able to win this football game. The line for this game is currently set at Lions minus 3.5, and the over-under is 48.5 points. As we mentioned in this breakdown and game preview, I think the Lions will just have too much offense for the Houston Texans. The Lions have been clean and efficient, and I think they will carry that into Houston and ultimately win the day against the Texans. I believe Houston has too many issues on the offensive line, and I don't know if they're going to have enough to stop this Lions offense. Ultimately, I have the Lions winning this football game 34-20. That would bring the Lions to 8-1 and would drop the Texans to 6-4. That will do it for my Week 10 preview. Lions at Texans. Let me know who you have in the comments down below. What is your final score for this exciting matchup here? What a great season it's been. It's been so much fun covering the Lions. Make sure to hit the like button if you dig the vibe here at Johnny Gaz Sports. I'd love it if you consider subscribing to the channel. We're just closing in on 2,200 thanks to all of you guys. And if you hit the notify bell, you won't miss any future videos. There's a membership option available where I do all my live game play-by-plays, tier list, ton of other fun stuff, but definitely come back and see me. There is free content here for you all the time. More than anything else, make sure to take care of yourself. Your mental health, that is most important. I want to make sure you come back and see me on future videos. Thank you guys so much again for your time. Enjoy your weekend. Go Lions.